A carefree day at the beach turned into horror when a bull shark's massive jaws clamped down on an unsuspecting swimmer, dragging her beneath the waves in a frenzy of blood and chaos. Helpless screams echoed from the shore as the predator's power proved unstoppable. Bull sharks, known for their aggressive nature, often hunt in shallow waters, striking quickly and brutally. Unlike other species, they can thrive in salt and fresh water, making them even more dangerous. In this video, we explore 6 terrifying shark attacks where sudden encounters turn deadly, revealing these apex predators' relentless and unpredictable nature. The sun was high over Pompano Beach in Florida on June 15, 2000. It was a warm day and the shoreline was crowded with tourists enjoying the early summer heat. The sandy beach stretched wide, filled with families building sandcastles, children splashing in the waves, and groups of friends playing volleyball. Among the visitors were Jess Harmon and Marie Sullivan, 2 college friends in their early 20s who had traveled to Florida for a relaxing getaway. The day had begun with excitement. Jess and Marie had spent their mornings swimming, sunbathing, and trying out different beach snacks from nearby vendors. By noon, they decided to cool off again. With their disposable camera, they waded waist-deep into the clear turquoise water. They wanted to capture beach selfies, laughing as they posed with the waves crashing behind them. It was a picture-perfect moment, and they were focused on snapping the best shot. The waters off Pompano Beach were known for their rich marine life, including stingrays, dolphins, and occasionally sharks. Bull sharks were a common presence here. Unlike many shark species, bull sharks were aggressive and often swam close to shore, even in shallow waters. They were fast and strong, able to hunt in murky, warm water, making them one of the more dangerous predators of the sea. Jess and Marie were oblivious to any potential danger, more concerned with the angle of their photos than the creatures lurking beneath the surface. The crowd on the beach was loud, filled with laughter and music, adding to the carefree atmosphere of the day. The 2 friends posed again, with their backs to the ocean, unaware of the shadow moving silently through the water behind them. At that moment, Jess felt something brush against her leg. She laughed it off, thinking it was a piece of seaweed. But then suddenly, there was an excruciating pain as sharp teeth sank deep into her calf. It was a bull shark, roughly 8 feet long, and its jaws clamped tightly around her leg. The attack was brutal and unexpected. Jess screamed as the shark yanked her violently, pulling her off balance. Still waist-deep in the water, Marie turned in shock as she heard Jess's cry. Her eyes widened as she saw the shark's dorsal fin slicing through the water beside her friend. Jess struggled to keep her head above the water, her face contorted in pain. Her body was being dragged, and she tried to kick free, but the shark's grip was firm. She slapped at the water, desperate to break free, but the shark's thrashing only intensified. The scene quickly caught the attention of people on the shore. The laughter and music faded as panicked shouts began to rise. Lifeguards whistled, rushing toward the water with rescue boards in hand. People pointed toward the splashing, some moving closer to the water's edge, unsure how to help. Marie reached out to grab Jess's arm, but the shark suddenly lunged, dragging Jess further into the deeper water. Marie stumbled backward, helpless, as the water turned red around her friend. She shouted for help, her voice hoarse and frantic, as Jess's head bobbed up and down with the shark's violent pulls. The lifeguards reached the spot quickly, paddling with all their strength. Jess, barely conscious now, was losing the fight. The bull shark's powerful movements had torn deep wounds into her leg, and the water was filled with blood. It seemed to excite the shark even more, its attacks becoming more erratic. It released Jess momentarily, only to strike again, its large body creating waves that knocked one of the rescuers off balance. Jess tried to swim back, but her energy was gone, her legs weak and unresponsive. The lifeguards shouted at her to stay still, but Jess couldn't hear them clearly through the ringing in her ears and the rush of the waves. She managed to get her head above water one last time before the shark bit into her side, pulling her down into the depths. The crowd on the beach stood frozen, watching in horror. Parents pulled their children back, shielding them from the grim reality in the ocean. A few brave swimmers tried to get closer, but the rescuers waved them off, knowing it was too dangerous. Within moments, Jess disappeared beneath the surface, her arm slipping from one lifeguard's desperate grasp. The bull shark swam away, its mission seemingly complete, leaving behind a red stain in the otherwise clear water. The rescuers, hearts pounding, continued their search, diving under repeatedly to find her, but Jess was gone. Marie collapsed in the shallow water, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't process what had just happened, her mind numb with shock and fear. She was pulled back to shore by one of the rescuers who tried to console her, but the scene remained chaotic. Beachgoers huddled together, murmuring in disbelief, some crying, others shaking their heads. Rescue divers arrived quickly and launched a full search for Jess's body. The divers, equipped with oxygen tanks and gear, moved methodically through the water, but the currents were strong, and visibility was low due to the stirred-up sand and blood. Hours passed as they searched tirelessly, knowing that every minute counted. By the end of the day, Jess's lifeless body was found. The rescue team carefully lifted her onto a boat, covering her with a sheet. Marie, still on the shore, broke down upon hearing the news. Jess's friends and family, who had been contacted, were devastated by the sudden loss. What had begun as a fun day at the beach had turned into a nightmare that would forever haunt those who witnessed it. For the beach community, it was a sobering reminder of the unpredictable dangers of the ocean, and for Jess's family, the tragedy was beyond words. An innocent selfie had become the last image of her life, a lasting reminder of how quickly joy could turn to horror in the unforgiving sea. The morning of August 3, 1998, was warm and clear on Christmas Island, a small atoll in the Pacific Ocean, part of Kiribati. The island was known for its vibrant marine life and deep ocean waters, making it a popular spot for free divers seeking adventure. Max Bennett and Leo Carter were among those adventurers. Both 26 had traveled here to challenge themselves by diving deeper than ever. Max, a carpenter from New Zealand, and Leo, a photographer from Australia, had been best friends since childhood. They shared a love for the sea, thrill-seeking, and pushing their limits in extreme ways. That morning, they prepared their gear on the rocky shore. They double-checked their weight belts, diving masks, and fins. There was an eagerness in the air. Max, the more daring of the two, was excited about breaking his depth record that day. Leo was also enthusiastic, though a bit more cautious. He understood the dangers of free diving, the lack of oxygen, disorientation, and the unknown depths of the ocean. Still, both of them felt confident and ready. The waters around Christmas Island were home to various marine life, including reef sharks, whale sharks, and the occasional tiger shark. Tiger sharks in particular were notorious for their curious nature and aggressive feeding behavior. Unlike many sharks, they were not deterred by humans and had been known to approach divers boldly. Max and Leo knew this risk but had encountered sharks before and believed they could handle it. By 9 a.m., the two friends entered the water, moving through the gentle waves. The water was warm and they could see the coral reefs below as they swam toward deeper waters. After a few warm-up dives, they felt comfortable and ready for a more challenging descent. Max was eager to dive beyond 100 feet, a depth that tested mental and physical endurance. Leo planned to dive alongside him, but surface sooner if needed. At around 10:30 a.m., the two friends signaled to each other that it was time for their big dive. Max took a deep breath, filling his lungs to their full capacity, and began his descent. Leo followed, keeping pace beside him. The clear water and sunlight streamed through, creating a surreal underwater scene. They passed through layers of warm and cold water as they descended deeper. Max felt the pressure increase around his body, but he kept moving downward, equalizing his ears with each kick. He was focused and determined to reach his goal. At 90 feet, Leo stopped. He was nearing his comfort limit and felt it was time to return to the surface. He looked at Max, who gestured that he was going to continue. Leo nodded, then started his slow ascent, looking up toward the surface. Max kept going, his eyes fixed on the depths below. He was now alone with the vast ocean surrounding him. Max reached 110 feet and felt a rush of accomplishment. He hovered momentarily, enjoying the sensation of weightlessness in the deep water. But as he turned to begin his ascent, he sensed a movement nearby. He froze, scanning the blue expanse around him. His heart rate quickened as he saw a dark shape approaching. It was a large tiger shark, about 12 feet long, swimming with deliberate movements. The shark circled slowly, its curiosity piqued by Max's presence and the bubbles rising from his regulator. Max knew he had to stay calm. Sudden movements could trigger aggression. He kept his eyes on the shark, his body tense but still. He began his ascent, keeping his strokes slow and controlled, hoping the shark would lose interest. The predator seemed more intrigued, its circles tightening around Max. He was now 100 feet deep, the surface feeling impossibly far away. On the surface, Leo had just emerged, taking deep breaths to recover from the dive. He looked around, expecting to see Max's head break the water soon. A few minutes passed and Leo felt a wave of unease. He dipped his head below, searching the depths, but couldn't see beyond the shifting blue. His instincts told him something was wrong. Below, Max's situation was becoming more dangerous. The shark made a sudden lunge, brushing against him. He jerked away instinctively, but his movements only seemed to provoke the shark. It came back, this time faster, snapping its jaws as it closed in on Max's leg. The pain was sharp and immediate as the teeth grazed his thigh, tearing through his wetsuit. Blood began to cloud the water around him. Max struggled to keep his composure. He kicked harder, trying to create space between himself and the shark. His lungs burned from the lack of oxygen, and he knew he had to ascend quickly, but the shark was relentless. It charged again, this time biting into Max's side. He felt the crushing pressure of the shark's jaws, his body jolting from the impact. Panic surged and he swung his arms wildly, trying to push the shark away. Leo, now desperate, dove back down to look for Max. He swam frantically, searching for any sign of his friend. He saw the cloud of blood below and felt his stomach drop. He kicked harder, descending quickly, but the pressure and fear were overwhelming. He reached 70 feet, but his lungs screamed for air. He was forced to turn back, feeling helpless as he surfaced alone. Meanwhile, Max was losing the battle below. The tiger shark continued its assault, circling and striking with increasing ferocity. Max's strength was fading, his vision blurring as the lack of oxygen took its toll. He tried to kick toward the surface, but his movements were slow and weak. The shark delivered a final powerful bite to his torso, dragging him deeper into the water. On the surface, Leo shouted for help, his voice breaking. Nearby divers noticed the commotion and rushed over, but they couldn't see Max beneath the water. Boats arrived quickly, and rescue divers prepared to enter the depths. Leo could only watch, his body trembling with fear and exhaustion. Rescue divers plunged into the water, descending to where the blood cloud had spread. They searched thoroughly, but Max was too deep. The tiger shark had vanished into the darkness, and Max's body was nowhere to be found. The once thrilling dive had turned into a tragedy, leaving Leo to grapple with the harsh reality of the ocean's dangers. Max, whose bravery had always been his strength, was claimed by the depths he sought to conquer. The sun was already high as tourists crowded the sandy beach of Hanauma Bay, one of Hawaii's most popular snorkeling spots. The summer air buzzed with excitement as groups of snorkelers eagerly adjusted their masks and flippers. Among them was Sophia Turner, a 27-year-old on her first trip to Hawaii. She had arrived on a group tour that morning, eager to experience the tropical waters she'd always dreamed of exploring. It was July 22, 1996, a day she had marked on her calendar months ago. Sophia, a recent college graduate from Denver, was finally enjoying the vacation she had saved up for. She was fascinated with marine life but had never snorkeled before. That morning, she listened intently as the guide explained safety rules, the basics of snorkeling, and how to avoid disturbing the reef. Sophia felt nervous but excited, adjusting her mask and breathing through her snorkel as she waded into the warm water with the others. The guide led the group slowly into the shallow cove, pointing out colorful fish swimming near the coral. It was a peaceful spot, with gentle waves and clear visibility. The guides warned the group about staying together as the ocean beyond the reef could bring unexpected dangers. The waters off Hanauma Bay were known for their beauty, but also predators like tiger sharks. Tiger sharks were common in Hawaiian waters, sometimes entering the bay while hunting for food. They were known for their boldness, not hesitating to explore shallow areas. Sophia first stayed close to the group, paddling cautiously and keeping her eyes fixed on the vibrant marine life below. She was amazed by the schools of bright yellow tangs darting among the coral, the parrotfish munching on algae, and even a few sea turtles gliding gracefully by. She felt a sense of wonder as she captured photos with her underwater camera. Her initial nerves faded, replaced by excitement as she drifted farther from the group, eager to snap close-up shots of the marine beauty surrounding her. The guide, focused on keeping the group together, didn't notice Sophia's slow drift. She continued to explore the coral heads further from the designated area. The deeper she went, the more vibrant and varied the underwater world became. Unaware of how far she had moved from the others, Sophia remained entranced, snapping photo after photo. In her fascination, she failed to notice the change in the water's calmness. The surface had grown choppy, signaling the transition from the protected cove to open water. Suddenly, there was a dark shadow in the distance. A large figure, sleek and purposeful, swam just beyond the edge of the reef. It was a tiger shark, likely drawn by the commotion of splashing snorkelers and Sophia's rapid movements. The shark initially approached with slow, deliberate strokes, curious and cautious. Sophia, still unaware, floated near the surface, her snorkel making soft sounds as she breathed in and out. The shark, now only a few feet away, sensed its prey. It swam closer, its movements becoming more direct. It was a large female, about 10 feet long, its striped body contrasting sharply against the blue water. Sophia felt a sudden jolt in the water around her but couldn't see what it was. Then, without warning, there was an overwhelming crushing pain in her leg as the shark bit down. She felt her body jerk violently, the water filling with red as the shark's sharp teeth tore through flesh. Sophia panicked, her instincts taking over. She tried to kick away, her flippers thrashing wildly, but the shark maintained its grip, shaking her side to side. Her muffled screams echoed through the snorkel as she struggled to break free. The water around her turned dark red and her vision blurred with pain and fear. She swung her arms desperately, trying to hit the shark or find something to grab onto. But there was nothing but water. The guide and the rest of the group, still some distance away, heard faint, panicked cries through the water. The guide immediately looked up, scanning the area for Sophia, realizing she was missing. He saw splashing in the distance, a sudden frantic disturbance that wasn't normal snorkeling behavior. Alarmed, he called for everyone to surface and began swimming toward the commotion, shouting for help as he went. When the guide reached Sophia, the shark had released her briefly, circling as if deciding whether to attack again. Sophia was barely conscious, struggling to stay afloat. Her leg was severely injured and she was losing blood rapidly. The guide tried to grab hold of her, but the shark, sensing movement, lunged again. It struck her side this time, pulling her deeper into the water. Sophia's body went limp as she was dragged downward, the shark's jaws relentless. The guide was helpless against the predator's force. He signaled frantically for more help, but the few snorkelers who had started toward him froze, unsure what to do. Within moments, Sophia disappeared beneath the surface, her body pulled further into the dark waters beyond the reef. The guide, devastated and gasping for breath, had to return to shore for more help. Back on shore, lifeguards and rescue teams quickly mobilized. Boats and jet skis were deployed, and divers prepared to enter the water. The crowd, now aware of the incident, gathered in shock and fear, whispering to each other as they watched the rescue attempt unfold. Some parents pulled their children away from the water, holding them close as they explained the danger. Once filled with laughter and excitement, the bay was now uncertain. Rescue divers searched the area methodically, looking for any sign of Sophia. The visibility was poor due to the blood in the water, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. They combed the depths near where she was last seen, but the ocean was vast and had strong currents. Minutes turned into hours, and the search seemed hopeless. Eventually, Sophia's lifeless body was found deeper than expected, pulled beyond the protective reef by the powerful shark. Her injuries were severe, a testament to the ferocity of the attack. The rescuers brought her to the surface carefully, but it was clear that the vibrant waters of Hanauma Bay had claimed another life. The secluded beach was tucked away along Australia's Sunshine Coast, known for its white sands and clear waters. It was November 14, 1993, and the sun shone bright over the Pacific. Newlyweds Jenna Cole and David Cole had chosen this hidden spot for their honeymoon. hoping to escape the crowds and enjoy the tranquility of the ocean. The couple had arrived a week earlier and had spent their days exploring the coast, taking long walks on the beach and swimming in the warm, inviting water. Jenna, 25, was a schoolteacher from Sydney, full of life and energy. David, 27, was a software engineer. The two had met 3 years ago and shared a love for the ocean. This honeymoon was the start of a new chapter, and they had been making the most of every moment, laughing, swimming, and capturing memories on film. They sat under a large umbrella this afternoon, enjoying a quiet day. Around 2 p.m., Jenna decided to take a swim alone. David had fallen asleep under the shade, tired from the morning's activities. Jenna loved the feel of the ocean and wanted one more swim before the day ended. She walked down to the water, glancing back at David to see him still resting. Smiling, she waded into the surf, letting the cool waves wash over her. The waters off the Sunshine Coast were home to various marine species, including dolphins, sea turtles, and sharks. Among the sharks, the tiger shark was a notable predator in these waters. Tiger sharks were large and aggressive, often swimming close to shore, attracted by disturbances and splashing. They were opportunistic hunters known for their unpredictable behavior and strong jaws. Locals knew their presence, but the beach was usually safe during the day. Jenna swam out beyond the breaking waves, feeling a sense of freedom as she moved further from the shore. She floated for a moment, letting the gentle waves carry her. Her mind was at ease, absorbed by the peace of the ocean. But as she swam, her legs splashed against the water, unknowingly sending signals below the surface. Suddenly, a dark shape emerged in the distance. It was a large tiger shark, about 12 feet long, moving with purpose toward the sound of splashing. Unaware of the danger, Jenna continued to swim, occasionally turning back to look toward the beach. David was still asleep, the umbrella casting a shadow over his body. As the shark drew closer, Jenna noticed something unusual in the water. She stopped swimming for a moment, her eyes scanning the surface. Then she felt a sudden sharp tug on her leg. It was the shark, its powerful jaws clamping down with incredible force. Jenna screamed, the sound muffled by the waves and carried faintly toward the shore. David stirred awake, hearing a distant cry. He sat up, blinking in confusion as he scanned the water. He saw Jenna struggling, her arms flailing wildly as the shark pulled her under. Panic surged and he jumped to his feet, shouting her name. His voice echoed across the empty beach, but no one else was around. In the water, Jenna fought desperately. She kicked with all her strength, trying to free herself from the shark's grip. But the predator was relentless, its teeth tearing through flesh. The pain was excruciating, and her body thrashed in a frantic attempt to escape. Blood clouded the water, attracting the shark even more. It released her momentarily, then lunged again, biting into her side. Jenna's movements grew weaker, her energy draining quickly. David ran toward the water, his heart pounding. He splashed into the surf, but the waves and distance made it hard to reach her. He shouted again, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Jenna's head bobbed above the surface briefly, her face a mix of fear and pain. She tried to call out to David, but her voice was faint, her strength nearly gone. The shark pulled her under once more, its body thrashing as it tightened its grip. Jenna's struggles slowed, her arms moving feebly against the water. David waded deeper, trying to get closer, but it was too late. He saw Jenna's body go limp as the shark dragged her into deeper waters. The waves rolled over the spot where she had been, leaving only a trace of blood in the water. David fell to his knees in the shallows, helpless and devastated. He stared at the empty sea, unable to process what had happened. Once peaceful and inviting, the water had turned into a horror scene. His honeymoon, meant to be filled with joy and love, had become a nightmare in minutes. Lifeguards and rescue teams arrived within minutes, alerted by David's desperate cries. Boats and jet skis rushed into the water, searching for any sign of Jenna. Divers entered the water, scanning the depths for her body. But the ocean was vast, and the currents were strong. Hours passed without success, the search becoming more desperate with each passing moment. Finally, just before sunset, the rescue team found Jenna's lifeless body, her injuries severe from the brutal attack. They lifted her onto a boat, covering her with a sheet. Waiting anxiously on shore, David fell to his knees as he saw them approach. The reality of his loss hit him with full force, the weight of the moment unbearable. The secluded beach, once a paradise for the couple, had become a place of tragedy. The shark attack, swift and merciless, had taken away Jenna in the most unexpected way. David, left alone in the fading light, could only hold on to the memories of a love that ended too soon. The summer heat was relentless at New Smyrna Beach, Florida, on August 7, 1999. It was a typical Saturday, and the beach was packed with families, tourists, and surfers. Known as one of the busiest beaches in the state, it was also infamous for frequent shark sightings. This stretch of coastline was a hotspot for bull sharks, which thrived in the warm, shallow waters. Bull sharks were notorious for their aggressive behavior and tendency to swim close to shore, making New Smyrna Beach one of the most shark-infested beaches in the world. 17-year-old Josh Whitman was on duty that day. He was proud to be the youngest lifeguard on the team. It was his first summer working at the beach, and he was eager to prove himself to the older guards. With his athletic build and sun-bleached hair, Josh had always dreamed of becoming a lifeguard. He was diligent and enthusiastic, known among the team for his eagerness to jump into action. That morning he arrived early, setting up the lifeguard tower with towels, binoculars, and rescue boards. The day started like any other, with Josh watching the swimmers closely. He scanned the waters carefully, his eyes following the surfers and children playing in the waves. His movements had a sense of routine, a confidence that had grown over the summer. He knew the risks of the ocean but felt prepared to handle anything that came his way. Josh noticed a disturbance far beyond the breakers around 2:30 p.m. as the sun bore down on the crowded beach. From his perch, he saw a group of swimmers pointing and waving their arms. The splashing was erratic, signaling trouble. Josh's instincts kicked in, and he quickly grabbed his rescue board, signaling to his fellow lifeguards before sprinting toward the water. He paddled hard, feeling the adrenaline surge as he moved through the choppy waves. The swimmers in distress appeared to be struggling, but as he got closer, they pointed further out, indicating that the problem wasn't among them. Confused, Josh continued paddling, determined to find the source of the disturbance. He pushed himself faster, his arms burning from the effort. Josh finally saw it about 100 yards from shore, a massive dark shape moving through the water. It was a bull shark, at least 10 feet long, circling aggressively. Josh's heart pounded as he realized what he was facing. The shark's dorsal fin broke the surface, its movement purposeful and menacing. He tried to slow down, but it was too late. The shark had already spotted him. The beachgoers on shore noticed the commotion, their attention shifting to Josh's solitary figure in the water. His fellow lifeguards were shouting and pointing, but the distance made their words indistinct. Josh knew he had to stay calm. He tried to keep his board steady, hoping to avoid drawing more attention from the shark. But the predator was relentless. It swam closer, its body slicing through the water with terrifying speed. Josh felt a sudden jolt as the shark bumped his board, testing it. He struggled to keep his balance, his hands gripping the board tightly. The shark's behavior was aggressive, likely driven by the splashing and noise. Josh tried to paddle back, but the shark circled his path. The lifeguards on shore were now desperately waving for swimmers to get out of the water. Whistles blared as they tried to clear the area. Parents hurried their children toward the sand, their faces filled with fear. Meanwhile, Josh fought to stay above water, his board rocking as the shark circled closer. Suddenly, the shark lunged forward, its jaws wide open. Josh tried to kick it away, but the shark was too fast. He felt a searing pain as the shark bit into his leg, its teeth sinking deep into the flesh. Josh screamed, the sound lost in the crashing waves. He swung his arms wildly, trying to hit the shark's snout, but the predator didn't retreat. It clamped down harder, shaking its head violently. Blood filled the water and a dark cloud spread around Josh. His strength was fading fast, his vision blurring from shock and pain. The shark released him momentarily, only to strike again, this time grabbing his side. Josh tried to push it away, but his body was limp, and his energy was drained. He knew he had to get back on his board, but the shark was relentless. On shore, the crowd watched in horror as Josh's board floated back toward the beach, empty. The lifeguards raced into the water, their rescue boards cutting through the waves. They reached where Josh had last been seen, finding only his board in the blood-stained water. They dove beneath the surface, searching desperately for him. Minutes later, one of the lifeguards found Josh's body limp and badly injured. The shark was gone, leaving behind the aftermath of a brutal attack. They pulled Josh onto a rescue board, his lifeless body a stark reminder of the ocean's unpredictability. The crowd on the beach fell silent as the lifeguards brought Josh back to shore. People gathered around, some crying, others in shock. His fellow lifeguards were devastated, their faces pale and eyes filled with disbelief. Josh, who had been so full of life and determination just moments before, was gone. News of the tragedy spread quickly, turning what had begun as a typical day into a haunting legend of New Smyrna Beach. The young lifeguard's final shift became a sobering tale, a reminder that even the bravest among us are not immune to the dangers of the sea. The late afternoon sun was beginning to dip over the coast of Maui, Hawaii on August 19, 1991. The beaches had started to clear as tourists packed up, satisfied with another day spent in paradise. It was a peaceful scene, with soft waves lapping gently against the shore. Laura Hayes, a 29-year-old local artist, had just finished an exhibit that morning in Lahaina. Eager to unwind, she headed alone for a sunset kayak trip, one of her favorite ways to relax after a long day. Laura, known for her adventurous spirit, was an experienced kayaker who often paddled beyond the shallow reefs to the deeper, calmer waters. She loved the freedom it brought, the chance to be alone with her thoughts. That evening, she chose a small, bright red kayak from her collection. She loaded it with a water bottle, paddle, and a whistle attached to her life vest. She pushed the kayak into the water, her bare feet sinking into the wet sand, and then climbed in, setting off with strong, steady strokes. The waters around Maui were famous for their marine life. Sea turtles, dolphins, and colorful fish were common sights. However, the deeper waters beyond the reefs were home to apex predators, including tiger sharks. Tiger sharks were large, strong, and aggressive, often swimming close to shore for food. Known for their curious nature, they could easily mistake a kayak or a swimmer for prey. Locals knew the risks, but encounters were rare, especially at dusk, when visibility decreased above and below the water. As Laura paddled further from shore, she admired the sky's changing colors and felt the open ocean's tranquility. Her strokes were slow and steady as she let the kayak drift between gentle paddling. She watched seabirds dive for fish and felt the warm breeze against her skin. She cherished moments like this the most, a quiet escape from the hustle of everyday life. But as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the water, Laura's peaceful outing took a sudden, terrifying turn. Without warning, a massive jolt hit the side of her kayak. The impact was so strong that Laura nearly lost her grip on the paddle. Her heart raced as she tried to regain her balance, her eyes scanning the darkening water. Another powerful bump followed, this time harder, tilting the kayak dangerously. Laura's instincts told her it wasn't just the current. It was a large shark, likely a tiger shark, ramming her kayak. Laura tightened her grip on the kayak's edges, trying to stay upright. But the shark struck again, hitting the kayak from beneath with such force that it flipped over, throwing Laura into the water. Disoriented, she surfaced quickly, gasping for air and trying to find her kayak. It was now upside down, bobbing a few feet away in the water. She grabbed it, trying to pull herself back on, but the shark was not done. It swam closer, its dorsal fin cutting through the surface, circling slowly. Panic surged through Laura as she struggled to keep her head above water. She clung to the overturned kayak, using one hand to paddle toward it. But the shark returned, ramming it again, nearly knocking it out of her grip. She reached for the whistle on her life vest and blew it repeatedly, hoping someone would hear her from the distant shore. There were a few fishing boats further out, but she couldn't tell if anyone had noticed her distress. The shark, now more aggressive, lunged at Laura, its large body causing waves that splashed over her. Laura kicked her legs desperately, trying to keep the predator at bay. But her movement seemed only to excite the shark more. It closed in rapidly, its sharp teeth glistening as it bit into Laura's leg. She felt a sharp, searing pain and screamed, but the sound of the crashing waves swallowed her voice. Blood clouded the water around her, a dark red spreading quickly. Laura tried to punch the shark's snout, a known defense tactic, but the shark was relentless. It released her leg only to return, striking her side. The impact knocked the breath out of her, and she struggled to keep hold of the kayak. She tried to climb on top of it, but her strength was fading, and her injured leg was barely able to support her. A few fishermen on the boats further out had noticed the commotion by now. They saw the overturned kayak and heard faint cries for help. One of the boats changed direction, speeding toward Laura. But as they approached, they could see the shark circling her, and the water turned a deep shade of red. Laura's movements became slower, her strength failing. The shark attacked again, pulling her under the water. The fishermen reached the spot moments later, finding only the empty, blood-stained kayak. They searched desperately, scanning the darkening water, but there was no sign of Laura. They radioed for help, and rescue boats soon arrived, deploying divers into the water. The search continued for hours with lights shining across the sea, but Laura was gone. The next morning, the kayak washed ashore upside down, a chilling reminder of what had happened. Locals gathered on the beach sharing stories of Laura's love for the ocean and how it had tragically claimed her. The quiet, serene waters that had once brought her peace had turned deadly in moments, marking the end of her final outing.